Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to embark on a journey like no other. Welcome to the Glum Lot Podcast,
your go-to destination for a unique blend of recovery and discovery.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Mark. And in this podcast, we will endeavor to create a safe and uplifting space for our guests and listeners to share their stories with sincerity and a touch of humor.
Remember, we are not a Glum Lot. The Glum Lot Podcast is more than just a source of entertainment. It's a beacon of hope, proving that even in the darkest moments, recovery is possible. Every story we share carries the power to inspire positive change.
So buckle up, get ready to listen, and join us in discovering the strength that lies within every individual's journey. This is the Glum Lot Podcast, where humor meets hope. Okay, this is episode number 55.
I can't drive 55! Sorry.
Okay.
Couldn't help it.
Well, the speed limit's 65.
And that's all I've been doing. All I've been doing all day today is driving. So
hey, we always announce at the start of the show, get in touch with us at the Glum Lot Podcast at gmail.com. Join our Facebook group, the Glum Lot Podcast on Facebook. But I wanted to just share with the listeners the number of countries we have reached just this month.
I'm excited.
Here's a rundown in the order of downloads. United States, Ireland, second. United Kingdom, third. Canada, Australia, Netherlands, New Zealand, France, Russia, Nigeria, South Africa, Norway, United Arab Emirates, Brazil, Denmark, Finland, Guam, Iceland, Malawi, Philippines, and Taiwan.
Wow.
That's where we're hitting. And that's it just goes to show you AA's all over the world. And
so are drunks and people struggling.
Yeah, and
right.
Alcohol. And hopefully,
that's what I meant.
And hopefully.
We affectionately call each other drunks.
Yes, and hopefully sobriety.
Right. And if not, hopefully we're helping people to come to the realization that
and that's
it's okay
funny
to
you
get help.
say that, because what I wanted to talk about was sponsorship.
Ooh.
And helping other alcoholics. And I remember early on in the program, my sponsor said to me, go ahead and call me whenever you want, 24/7. When you call, you're helping me. And I was like, I was saying to myself in my mind, well, that's not true. I'm bugging him. I felt like I was bugging him.
Oh, absolutely.
But being on the other side of that, I know now how much it helps me. Oh. And I had a recent experience, and I had a realization during that experience that I had a couple sponsees that were having trouble.
Yeah.
And I talked to them on their way through this, entire thing, until they kind of came out the other side. And I was talking to, and they both apologized to me for putting me in the middle of their problems.
Isn't that something?
And I said, you know what? I've realized that as a sponsor that I get to, because your sponsees, you do become emotionally invested in them.
Oh, 100%.
Because you're a human being.
Absolutely.
And you're supposed to detach with love when the time is right. But, I mean, you get to be their friends. You get to be concerned about them, of course. And you really get to, even love them as human beings.
That's right.
So my take on that was, I said, well, I've had the opportunity to work through this severe problem and find a solution and work through it without being on the hook for it.
Right.
In other words, you can live through them and experience the lessons through them without really suffering the, being on the hook for it. It's almost like a free ride. It's like a free lesson.
No, absolutely.
And so my one sponsee said, well, I was going to say I'm sorry, but instead I'll just say you're welcome.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. But how sad it is, though, that we have to say sorry. And that's exactly what I go through, being still fairly new. I still struggle with that and the sorry part, right? Because every time I had done it in the past, it felt like an inconvenience. It felt like I was whining.
You felt like you're burdening them.
Yeah. 100%. I'm a downer.
I have heard that, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, that a problem shared is halved.
Absolutely.
And joy shared is doubled.
Yeah.
So, the thing with this is there was a problem that was shared, and when the problem was learned through, that was the joy that was doubled.
Yeah, 100%.
So if you're reluctant, if you've got some time in and you've worked the steps, and you're thinking, I don't know if I could really sponsor anybody. I don't know what to say. Don't do that. Just you know what? Show them what happened to you. Take them through the steps like you were taken through the steps, or make your own version of it, or talk to somebody about it. Say, how do I work the steps with somebody else? Because that's how this whole thing works.
Yeah.
You know, and you will quickly see the benefits in your own sobriety.
100%.
So
great topic, Mark.
Yeah. Well, thanks. It was on my mind today. So our guest today is Tom, and if you go back a couple episodes and listen to Cindy F.
Yes.
Cindy F. recommended Tom to the podcast, and we're excited to have him. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Somebody new again that we don't know
right.
that we can find out all this good stuff about.
So let's welcome Tom.
Tom.
Welcome to the podcast, Tom.
Hey,
Glad
Tom.
to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, can we start with your sobriety date?
Yeah, hi, Tom Benz. My sobriety date is May 18th, 1989.
Okay,
Nice,
great.
man. 25 years.
Good.
Nice.
We usually like to
35.
talk about...
Oh, my God, 35. I'm usually good at
You
math.
stole 10 years from that guy.
That's all right.
What a jerk.
Yeah. You and I got sober right around the same time. My first meeting was 1989. Yeah.
Unfortunately, my first meeting was 1984.
I was going to say, I didn't stick around for the first
Ooh,
6 months.
I imagine
so,
we'll hear all about it.
Yep. So we like to start kind of at the beginning. We like to find out when people's first experience with the effects of alcohol and or drugs was as they were growing up.
Like
usually,
all the details of how you felt.
Oh, boy. I can remember... It's funny, I used to listen. I went to a lot of speaker meetings.
Yeah.
And I remember this one guy saying, I can't remember my first candy bar, but I can remember my first drink.
Oh, yeah.
How about that?
Sure. Yeah.
That always stuck with me because I was like, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
So, I can really remember pretty precisely that first experience with drinking. And it's about 13. And, it was a bottle of gin, which throughout in my drinking career, I never drank gin after that.
I was going to say,
The experience was so terrible, but the feeling was fantastic.
Oh, sure.
And I just, went on to drink other things.
So when you're 13 and
experience.
you're with some buddies, right?
Yep.
Somebody steals a bottle of gin from one of their dads or whatever.
We had access to a lot of alcohol.
Yeah. And so you start, and you're like me. I mean, when we grew up, the drinking age was 18, which means for all intents and purposes, it was kind of 16.
Yeah.
You can get it. And if you had an older brother, it was whenever, And so it was just, you could have walked into a store, and if you looked 18, they would never check you.
Wow.
So it's just more accessible in that respect. But
Oh, yeah.
so you drink, and you catch this warm buzz. And do you fall in love from the word go?
I was immediately in love with it.
What did it do for you that you didn't experience when you weren't drinking?
I had just a total sense of wanting more immediately.
Ah.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
I've
you
never
chased
really done anything in moderation, but I immediately wanted more of that feeling.
And so is that what you pursued?
Yeah. And then, that led to experiencing with other things pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the youngest of 6
or?
kids. And I grew up on a small island in Florida.
Okay. Yeah.
No kidding.
Town called Palm Beach. Very dysfunctional. Wealthy town.
Wealthy to the point of being dysfunctional?
Yeah.
It's funny, but, when I was bartending in college, I bartended in a very wealthy community. And there was this underlying layer of the kids of the wealthy people that were pretty twisted, but they had access.
Yes.
And that's what kind of made it blow up even more.
It's a beautiful, dark place.
Yeah.
And, I had, wonderful parents. I had a great, childhood. And, again, youngest of 6 kids.
Yeah.
3 older sisters that I grew up with mainly. And they were totally straight, normal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
You were the lucky one.
I had it from the beginning.
So shortly after starting to drink, were you exposed to pot?
I was. That was the next, probably might have even been at the same time.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I can't remember if I started smoking or drinking first, but
you liked them
they
both.
were together.
Yeah. And often, I know for me, you do them both at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's what kids, that's what 13-year-old boys do when they can, right?
Oh.
And so did you feel it was kind of normal at the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was normal till probably for about 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Then what happened?
About 15, I started questioning myself.
Oh, at 15, you started questioning yourself.
Yeah.
What was going on?
I started
that
getting
made
into other things too after that.
Okay. So what brought the questioning?
I was just wondering if I was getting like
Too into drugs?
out of control.
So
Okay.
did you start doing blow or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured. That's kind of.
I was
the
in
next-
South Florida, and it was,
Yeah, oh my God, it must have been everywhere.
God, right?
Yeah, I had
Seriously.
money. I lived in South
Walk
Florida.
up to the dock.
and it was everywhere.
Yeah,
It would float in.
it was crazy.
Yeah, and
Float
boy,
in.
that can get out of hand quickly.
Yeah.
And is that kind of what
At
happened?
15, I was, mostly a weekend partier, as far as the drugs and the drinking.
How was school going?
School was not going well. So I was already in trouble. I went to Catholic school, first grade through 8th grade, St. Anne's, and then I was supposed to go to this Cardinal Newman, which is the high school, Catholic school.
Yeah, private.
And I had such a bad record in 8th grade that they wouldn't accept me. So I went to boarding school.
Oh, did they send you
freshman
away?
year. Yeah.
Was that good or bad for you?
Well, I was happy. I mean, I enjoyed it because it was just something new.
Yeah.
It was in New Orleans.
Was there still drugs and
New
alcohol
Orleans.
available
Yeah.
there?
Oh,
Oh, my God.
did you hear that?
Like not what?
New Orleans.
It was in
Oh,
New Orleans.
Jesus.
So-
Why?
Man.
and it was a 90-minute, back in the day, flights were pretty easy. So I'd
Yeah.
just hop on a Delta flight from Palm Beach to New Orleans. It was, 90-minute flight, get in and out. So I'd come back and forth, quite a bit if I wanted to. But by luck, my roommate in that freshman year that was assigned to me as my roommate was from New Orleans, but he was a weekly boarder. So his name was Al.
So he'd come in and stay there during the weekdays, but on the weekends he'd go home.
Yes, and his father was the founder of a very famous, very well-known fried chicken franchise.
Okay.
Not KFC, but another very popular one,
Okay.
especially in New Orleans.
Starts with
So-
a C. Oh, no. Okay, never mind.
Now, it starts with a P.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was my roommate.
Oh, my gosh.
So usually instead of going home back to Florida, I'd just go to Al's house on the weekend,
Nice.
which was
Extravagant.
totally insane,
Yeah.
and no supervision.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I got to experience my first Mardi Gras parade in the parade.
New Orleans, yeah.
Yeah, on the float.
Yeah. Oh, no kidding.
15.
Oh, they
Yeah.
sponsored a float? And they're like, you're coming with us. And you're like, hell yeah, I am.
This is getting good, folks.
And so were you guys getting torn up all the time?
All the time.
Like
So
ridiculous?
Mississippi is where I discovered mushrooms because they
Okay.
were very plentiful. And again, in boarding school environment, you tend to kind of stay away from the drinking during the day because of the smell of alcohol.
Right, you can get caught easily.
Drugs are a lot easier.
But
to
tripping, nobody's
hide.
going to,
Nobody notices you.
yeah.
So you kind of
So,
through it.
would you say at this point when you're in this boarding school in high school that your life is centered around alcohol and drugs?
100%.
Yeah. How were your
And women.
grades?
Yeah.
Did you keep them up or?
Nah, not too well. though.
Nah. So matter of fact.
Were you
nah.
ever, did they ever call you in and go, what's up with you?
I would get disciplined pretty frequently on attendance and on grades.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it seems
And
like
that boarding school was run by it was called St. Stanislaus. It was run by the Brothers of the Sacred Heart. So it was an all-boys boarding school.
Yeah.
But there was a sister school next to it. But they were pretty strict.
I was going to say,
Like,
usually those places, they put the hammer down.
Yeah, and I hated it. And I told my parents I hated it, so they were sympathetic to that. And I got to come home. And I was then sent on to another boarding school, which I attended for a couple of years up in Connecticut. Didn't survive too long there. And then I went to
For the same reasons?
Yeah,
So
same stuff.
You tyrant.
Same stuff.
at any point
But
during
I was
this,
still playing sports at the time.
Okay.
And
What
I
were
was
you
always athletic. Because I learned sports at a young age. I was very active in, golf, tennis, skateboarding, baseball. I participated in all that stuff.
Yeah. And that continued?
It did, but
Yeah.
I didn't like the practice. So
Well, no.
the discipline was not there. I had some athletic talent, which just kind of went to waste. But
Yeah.
it serves me well later today, the golf does. But
Yeah.
Sure.
other than that, my athletic...
At any point along the way, did anybody suggest to you that your problems might be a drug and alcohol thing, or you just kept it really secret?
No, I was really good at hiding it.
Yeah.
Really good at it. And I was really
just a
pretty
teenager.
functional. Yeah. And again, I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And, I was just able to.
Let me ask you
get
this, and this is a bit presumptive of me, but if you come from money and you're hanging out with kids that come from money, do you just kind of have like a fuck you attitude towards anything that's going to try to put a guardrail on you?
I would say I lived life with reckless abandon.
Yeah, because I noticed that too when I was bartending. These kids that came from wealthy families, their parents were usually super busy running businesses and stuff like that, and they would just kind of give them, let them make a lot of their own decisions and manage their own time and spend money kind of the way they wanted to, which gave them a real attitude of, I'm doing great. Shit. But of course I was like, well, let's bust out another $1,000 that you're going to pay for that, and
yeah. And we were like my town that I grew up in. We had some pretty really really high level guys from big industry companies, well known.
Yeah.
But and most of all the guys that we hung out together, like our group, we weren't arrogant in that sense.
Yeah.
We were just more rebellious.
Yes.
But not trying to be rebellious. Mm-hmm. We just didn't care.
Right.
Living it up.
And we knew that, we had a law enforcement on the island, which was the Palm Beach Police Department. The captain at the time of the police department lived on Palm Beach. His son was part of our group.
Oh.
Carl.
Okay.
Hung out with us, partied like a madman. And
so that helps.
We could just never get in trouble. I had a kid visit me from boarding school when I was 16, and I got pulled over for a speeding ticket, and I had a beer in my open beer, and I got out of the car, and my buddy's looking at me like,
"Are you out of your mind?"
You still had it in your hand?
Yeah, and I set it on top of the roof to sign my ticket.
Let me just set this here while you get this over with.
He's like, "That is unbelievable."
So you guys had the world by the balls.
Yeah, it was a very, again, it was pretty odd place.
Yeah.
We didn't know it at the time.
No, to you it was normal.
Once I got outside of there, though, and I was like going to New York City for the first time, so with my buddies, like, don't look at anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you can get in trouble here.
Yeah.
I'm like, he goes, you're not in your bubble anymore. I'm like,
oh, yeah, that's a good description.
But it's interesting.
So you're going through high school. You graduate high school.
But it enabled me, tremendously.
Oh, God, yes.
And it just was not healthy.
It's funny, but people talk about environments like the inner city where people aren't really watched a lot and things go on. But this is like the opposite end of the spectrum. That's still the same kind of thing,
Oh, yeah.
Except maybe you have a little more access, maybe, money-wise. But, I mean, if you live in the inner city, you have access to everything, too.
Yeah.
And then the funny thing, too, is that I'm a suburban kid, middle-class suburban kid. But I know out here in the suburbs, heroin's everywhere, and it's being used, mushrooms, Adderall, every drug you can possibly think of. And when I was a kid, it really wasn't that way. Yeah. When I was a kid, like heroin users were like something in a big city. Nowadays, it's like middle-class kids, It's really gotten blown up. So you go through high school, you graduate high school.
Yeah, 5 years.
Oh, you went to high school for 5 years?
I repeated my junior year at the third boarding school I went to. That I was at like the bottom rung of choosing now. So, but I did well there.
Huh. At any point did your parents go, look, you're not stupid. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, they would question that occasionally. And I just said I wasn't happy.
Well, yeah, if you're getting in trouble all the time, didn't that come back to them?
It did.
Yeah.
But I was shielded. It would come back to my mother. And my mother would
important part.
shield that from my father as best she could.
Mm.
And, she'd write it off because I was her baby.
He's got that in your back pocket.
Yeah.
And I had a great relationship with both my parents.
Yeah.
And I mostly enjoyed spending time with them.
Yeah.
That's when it started becoming like questioning at 15, 16. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, what am I doing?
This just doesn't seem right. Sometimes I'd feel.
But when all the people you're hanging out with are doing the same thing, it does normalize it.
Yeah.
And then you feel like you're getting away with something, that rebellious stage. It's kind of cool and exciting. And
But I knew I couldn't resist. Like, I knew I had no willpower to just have a little bit of anything.
Yeah.
At a pretty early
that
age.
awareness that early. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
like, I can't stop.
Yeah.
do you
I had friends that could.
Oh, and maybe that's what separated you.
Yeah, I'm like, what? You're going home?
Yeah, so all of a sudden you were a little bit different than
What, are you
them.
quitting on me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you go on to college?
Yeah. Went to college in Boston, and pretty good university there. Got in a ton of trouble from the get-go. And I was a legacy student there
Okay.
on top of everything else. So I was able to get out of some of the trouble I got into, but it was a difficult period.
Is this where your father went to college?
No, I had three sisters that went there
Okay.
previous. And
All right. So like, so-and-so's.
my father was on the board at that college. So.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God. They must have just been shaking their heads going, God damn it, when is this kid going to be done?
He became a board member like somewhere in between around my first sister that went there about her second year.
And of course, they were all straight and narrow and good students.
Oh, yeah. Cum laude, grad,
Wow.
Everything. And
Was all your...
I'm doing summer school, just trying to get to the next credit, and it was ugly.
Yeah.
Did most of your problems center around your drug and alcohol use, or as a result of that behavior?
I would say so.
Yeah. Okay. So in college, you start to think, is this what my life's going to be? Did it occur to you?
I had an incident where I got in so much trouble that I couldn't get out of, so I had to confront my parents for the first time through a third party at the college I was at. His name was Dr. McIntyre, and he was the dean of admissions, actually. But we developed a pretty good relationship. And he had been down to our house a few times, and so I got to know him. But I was like, I'd gotten an incident that was difficult to get out of, and he helped me by suggesting the only way I can get out of it is to go to a treatment center and to take a medical leave of absence and confront my parents.
Yeah.
And let them know.
So did you confront your parents?
I did, with his help.
Oof.
And they were, they responded pretty, lovingly.
Wow.
And somewhat shocked, too.
Of course.
Because I hit it so well because I loved Quaaludes. And at a young age, Quaaludes were plentiful where I was.
Yep.
And I realized that these are great. And
What
my
do
parents,
Quaaludes do? I'm familiar with, but I'm not sure.
it's like drinking 2 6-packs.
Yeah, they're
So
downers.
they're a downer.
They're downers.
Okay.
But they were.
But
they stopped making them.
Yeah.
What was the year?
Roar.
70? Yeah, Roar was the pharmaceutical company.
The pharmaceutical
Roar.
So is that like the Black Beauty
used to
situation? I know those were the opposite.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Black
no, but it used
Beauties
to
were
say
around
Roar 714.
lemon.
Yeah. And they were like
They were horse
a hit.
tranquilizers.
Oh shit.
But
Yeah.
people loved them.
Well, of course.
They would balance you out pretty well. So, and my parents' house in Florida had a huge bar in it. Like, it was called the Loggia. And it was always stocked with booze. And friends would come over, and my father he'd love to entertain.
Yep.
So he'd always offer the kids a beer or whatever. Well, yeah, when we were 15 or 16. It was no big deal.
No,
But I'd always be like, nah, I don't want a beer. I'm like, I'll have a Coke or whatever. So he never thought I drank.
Because I'm taking Quaaludes right now.
So I'd and we'd go be out at dinner, and I'd pop a Quaalude, and my dad would be like, you want a beer or whatever? I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm going to have a water.
Jesus.
And he's like, man, that kid's really on the straight and narrow.
So when this happened, they were totally confused.
They were
I
floored,
think they thought maybe I had smoked pot or tried pot or,
They had no idea.
They thought that stuff, but they had no idea. Like I was.
Were you completely open and honest? You laid it all out there?
Yeah. I had
Did
to
it have
tell them
potential
what happened.
legal ramifications, and that's why you had to do this way?
It
I mean,
did.
I don't want to get into your personal stuff, but I'm just curious.
What happened is I was getting 1/4 kilos of cocaine from Florida sent up to me.
Okay.
And at the time, and I was,
Trafficking.
in school, and we were distributing.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
I had to ditch a 1/4 kilo because we were about to get busted by
Okay.
what we think was a federal agency.
Yeah. Yep.
So basically tossed that
Yeah.
And at the time, it was, 15 grand or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I didn't have on me. And it was starting to get ugly.
A little hairy, huh?
Uh-huh.
So I needed to resolve that situation pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you go to a rehab?
I did.
Yeah.
I went to...
since we're probably about the same age, there weren't a lot of rehabs back then.
No, it was
like
in Connecticut. It was a place called Starlight Farm, 1984.
Starlight Farm.
In Connecticut. And it was mostly General Dynamics, had a big facility there somewhere nearby that place in Connecticut. So it was all these old guys. And
defense contractor guys.
Yeah. And it was just a bunch of old guys, and I'm like, I just got to be here to get out of the situation, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not listening to anything at all, and I'm just, participating minimally. And 10 days into it, I went AWOL. I had a buddy of mine send a package, FedEx, to me at that facility that had substances in it. I received my package. They didn't check for some reason. They gave me my FedEx package. I got my package. I went into town, got a bottle of schnapps, which I used to love, peppermint schnapps, and did my thing.
Yeah.
So you just walked out the front door?
I did.
Did they know that?
No. They did after a while because they were looking for me.
Oh, right. Did you put like a volleyball in your bed and make a pillow?
I was gone for probably 6 hours, whatever. If I left at like 10 o'clock in the morning.
And then you
I got my package. I walked into town, found a package store, and got a bottle of schnapps and hung out. Came back. They're like, where have you been? Have you been drinking? I'm like, drinking? I'm like,
no.
Why would I be drinking? I'm in a treatment center. Doesn't make any sense.
Just chewing gum.
So like,
it was before cameras.
They're
right?
like, you're going to have to take a urine test.
Okay.
Gladly.
So, what was the results of that urine test?
Positive. So the next day, they said, you're going to have to leave. I'm like, oh, great. Yeah. So I had to call my parents. I'm like, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
I said, this place sucks.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm like, they're kicking me out. So I'm like, they're a bunch of old dudes, where trying to get sympathy from my parents.
Yep. That's called manipulation.
I'm like, they're like, we don't think you should have done that. They're like, you're going to have to go to New York. We had a house in New York at the time, too. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right. So I went there. This was right around Easter weekend. They're like, your sisters are I had 3 sisters then living in Long Island at the time. They're like, we're coming up for Easter. We'll get situated. You can stay at the house. I'm like, great. So I got out, stayed at my house, went to my buddy's a couple blocks away from where I lived, who was probably equally as crazy as I was, and a very well-known family from New York, and partied for like 3 days, stayed up all night. Then I had to go to a christening. That Sunday I was supposed to be at my sister's daughter's christening, and I think I was walking down Park Avenue at 5 o'clock in the morning, and my brother-in-law saw me, put me in the car.
What a coincidence.
What are you doing? Well, he was looking for me.
Oh, okay.
So he's like, you got to get cleaned up. I'm like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I'm just out for a stroll.
Just another disaster.
Yeah,
so then I saw a psychiatrist. He got me into Hazelden Pioneer Center in Minnesota. So within 3 months of getting kicked out, I was back in another treatment center in Minnesota.
Now, are you there for like a planned 28-day rehab?
That was a 28-day rehab.
Yeah.
I made it. I made it all the way to 27 days, and then I got kicked out.
Oh, one more day.
Not for using, for fraternization.
Oh, yeah, okay. So, well, see, that's what happens when you mix boys and girls together.
I didn't get signed out with, medical.
Now, being Hazelden, were you exposed to the 12-step program there?
Yeah.
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 So that was your first time?
It was awesome. Yeah. I mean, I liked that program.
Yeah.
And I liked it was in Plymouth. And I was right on the cusp of the cutoff. It was really for 21 and under. I think, or 20 and under. And I was 20. I was just turning 21 in May. So they let me go there. Mm-hmm. But it was mostly like 18-year-olds.
Yeah. But a better fit for you, younger. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so did you look at that? Did you look at the stops and what was being talked about and think, this is me. I got this problem.
I started to recognize that a little bit for the first time.
And then life was a little bit unmanageable.
Yeah. And then they had an aftercare program. I went to Chicago after that.
So were they very psychiatric based, like psychiatrists?
No, not so much. It was all 12-step big book stuff. Yeah, peer group therapy. Yeah. I mean, you had one-on-one. Each one, you'd have a counselor, and then a lot of it was peer group work.
Yeah, so I know when Hazelden kind of was AA, but they broke off and went more the psychological side of things, and that's why I was curious about that.
No, I don't know. I didn't experience that.
Yeah.
So when you go to Chicago, you start attending regular AA meetings?
I started going to AA meetings.
Nice.
Yeah, and I was doing aftercare for like maybe a week.
Like outpatient?
Yeah, it was outpatient aftercare.
And so
it was through Hazelden.
What was your experience with the open meetings, the regular meetings?
The first one I went to, an open AA meeting,
Did you
was
raise
a
your
young
hand?
people's meeting.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember if that. I think I did at that meeting.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was in the suburbs in Winnetka. It was a young people's meeting. It was pretty cool. I met some good people. And I had the girl that I got in trouble with fraternizing at Plymouth. Her name was Simone. She came to visit me. She was from Wisconsin. So she came to visit me like a week after I was out in Chicago. And we went to a couple meetings together.
Nice.
And then we decided to go out and party.
Okay.
Fraternize a little more.
Yeah. Well, we got our
You weren't convinced?
we got our goods. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're like, we got this figured out. We just got to control it better.
And so you're out of rehab. You're going to some meetings. You've learned some things, but you still want to go out and do your thing.
Just control it.
Yeah. And I from what you said earlier, it was about like a 4-year.
Yeah.
thing,
So
right?
4 years in and out. Then I was going to CA meetings and not drinking, and then I'd go to AA meetings and do lines in the bathroom and just craziness.
But along the way,
and I had sponsors. I'd get a sponsor, and
lie to them?
I had one really good sponsor that, towards the end, when I finally surrendered, I started listening to him. Tom H. was his name.
So did you kind of like bullshit your sponsors along the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've experienced
Or
that
say
as a
what they
sponsor
wanted to
even.
hear. You know.
Yeah. And then you're thinking to yourself, well, I hope I can, make this happen. But until then, I'll just kind of, fly along the edge here.
Yeah. But I was going to tons of meetings.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All throughout.
And probably delivering a sterling message.
Mustard seed group. And,
What's funny is I got a friend who, he's been on the podcast, who he told me he was a heroin user. He said, I'd go to a meeting, I'd go in the bathroom and do heroin, and then return and deliver a sparkling message.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? He's just repeating what he heard, and people are like, oh, that guy's pretty sober. But the whole time he was completely fucked up.
Yeah, slogan sobriety.
So what was it that brought you to the point of, you talked about
so
surrender.
my last year of doing that, so around 88.
And you're still in Chicago?
That whole year, yeah. I'm still in Chicago. And I had a really good job. And, but for the last year of that job, I was not showing up at all. I was basically, I had a driver, and I'd get him to drive me downtown. I'd go see my source. I'd get my stuff. And at that time, I was I was buying a quarter ounce a day of Coke.
How did you keep your job?
For a year. Because I was very good at what I did early on, and I was successful. And I had somewhat of a legacy also in Chicago.
Okay.
Just by name and reputation.
All right.
Predecessing me. So, but I had some success also.
Okay.
So they gave me a lot of
So you were able to
leeway.
ride that for a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
About 3 years.
Yeah, that's not a little bit. That's a lot of bit.
Yeah.
The fourth year was
Disaster.
no good.
So,
No good.
So is it any one particular thing that hits you that makes you?
So in February of 88, no, February of 89, it's probably January of 89, I started thinking I was somewhat psychotic, I think. Like I was very paranoid. And I was drinking a lot of schnapps every day. just basically carrying around a bottle of schnapps with me and then drinking whatever else I could. I was taking Valium, Halcyon, and Restoril.
I don't know what Restoril is, but...
Halcyon they took off the market. Halcyon was my favorite.
Was that a downer?
Yes. And I would balance that out. So I'd wake up in the morning, have a shot of something, do a couple lines, take a Halcyon, repeat, rinse, recycle.
Yeah. So you're
throughout the whole day.
And so this psychosis that you think was probably was psychosis.
Yeah, I couldn't drive a car at 27 years old.
Yeah. So and you're just living in this drug-induced fucking dream.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And but at some point,
my three friends were one was a heroin addict. I never did that. I don't know.
Thank God.
Yeah. She was a blues singer from Chicago.
Ooh.
And then the other guy was a cokehead. He was a 6'4" Creole guy from New Orleans. His brother was a very famous singer. And me in a Brooks Brothers suit.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we're cruising around in
fucking
a
mess,
limo,
right?
just creating chaos, right? And people would be like, this is an odd couple.
Yeah.
They'd see the three of us
it's a weird
walking in
fit.
together.
Right. That the white guy must be their lawyer. So, but something happened inside you, right?
Yeah. So then in February, I called Hazelden, Center City, the big Hazelden. I'm like, I got to come up. Like, I can't take it anymore.
Were you just
I'm
mentally
either going to die emotionally and physically.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Physically, I weighed 127 pounds when I got in.
I was that
like
when
I wasn't
born.
eating at all. I would just force feed myself.
Did anybody in your life say, what the hell's going on with you, man? You look terrible.
Yeah, my cousin got married like in the December of 88.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom came up for that wedding. And she's like, you don't look good. Yeah, I'm like, it's just work. You know?
Oh, right, yeah.
Stress.
She's like, you really don't look good. And I'm still thinking I'm healthy because I'm working out occasionally, trying to stay in shape. But I really didn't look good. So she did notice it at the time. She's like, I don't know, whatever you're doing, you've got to stop doing. Yeah. I'm like, don't worry. I'm like, I'm fine.
So early 89, you go back.
I got it together. So that was like December of 88. And January or February of 89, I started calling Hazelden, saying I'm coming up. I made a reservation for March to go in. And then I called them late February. I said, hey, change of plans. I'm busy. I can't make it in March.
Got a little more to do.
Somehow I got a second breath.
Make sure.
I think I can keep this going a little
longer. I don't feel as bad as I did that
We've
day.
never heard that before.
So I did that in March, and then I did that in April.
Kept pushing it off.
Gosh.
Kept pushing it. I made 2 different reservations I canceled. And then in May, I call them in May. I'm like, I got to come. I'm like, for real, I'm dying. They're like, we don't have any beds.
Damn.
I'm like, nah. I said, I'm coming. I'm getting on a plane. I said, I'll give you my reservation number. I got cash. I can pay, no problem.
Yeah.
They're like, we really don't have any beds. I'm like, I got to go.
Can you buy a bed and I'll pay for it?
I said, so I told them, I said, I got a flight reservation. They're like, what is it? Yeah, we'll have someone meet you at the airport. We'll see what we can do when you get here. But I can't promise we're going to have a bed.
Yeah.
Like, great. So I got my brother to pick me up, called my dad. I said, I'm totally losing my mind. Fucked. He's like,
fucked.
He's like, you can't tell your mother. I'm like, no. What?
she'll lose her shit.
Just the opposite now, right? Because my mother had just gone in for a facelift, and she was recovering from surgery. So he didn't want to disturb her recovery.
With
he was protecting her.
Yeah, so that was a totally, I'm like, okay, Dad, whatever. So we didn't. But, he was supportive. He's like, John's going to pick you up. My oldest brother lived in Chicago. He's going to take you to the airport. I'm like, great. So I got there, sitting at the baggage claim, get a tap on the shoulder. It's a guy from Hazelden, the driver. I'm like, how'd you know who I was? He's like, we know.
Your reputation precedes you, sir.
I'm like, oh, great.
You're on the radar.
I have a suit on. My case.
You weigh 120 pounds.
I'm looking all good.
It's like dripping off of him.
So they put me in, and I kind of knew the gig a little. So I had a pack of cigarettes, and I had twisted out maybe 3 or 4 cigarettes, emptied them, and then I packed them with, ground up some pot, packed them back in. I put a little bit of tobacco on top of each one. So I had like 4 of those with me that they didn't discover. So I'm in on the take-in in the infirmary. So I'm in medical care. They're like, we got a detox. And I'm like, great. I go through the drug list, everything I have.
Yeah.
They're like, you can be here a while. So 3 days, 4 days go by. They're like, your blood pressure's way out of whack still. So I'm on there 7 days.
Now, are you smoking this pot cigarette?
I hadn't smoked that yet because I was still in the detox unit.
Are they doing like a Valium taper for you? Or would they
No,
do?
they use, it's called Serax. It's a non-addictive thing. But,
all right.
Because benzodiazepine withdrawal is terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the worst. So I get through that 7 days. They get me on a unit. I'm out taking a walk. And I'm like, 7 days sober now. My head's a little bit clearer. Feel like shit. I'm like, this has got to be my last stop. Because physically, I really thought I was dying.
Yeah.
You probably were on your way.
Yeah.
I think I was close to dying. And I'm out in the woods. And I have my pack of cigarettes with me. I have this choice. I'm like, I can't do it. They're going to know. First, I'm like, I can't go back on this unit.
So the first time you cared, whether somebody knew or not.
Yeah. And I remember getting down on my knees and praying in the woods. And it was just, there was a pond, and I saw these ducks going by, and there was a baby, like 6 baby ducks and a mom. And I'm just like crying. And I threw that stuff out. I just threw it out in the woods. Smoked a cigarette, came back to the unit. That was it.
The rest is
I
history.
had this awesome counselor named George Weller. And he'd always say, if you want to get Weller, you got to listen to me.
You want to get Weller, you got to get a little Weller.
Yeah.
And
I'm
so
like, all
that
right,
was
George.
that was your turning point, though, huh?
I love this guy. Yeah, George.
Yeah, you can tell. I can see it.
So then 7th day, and all of a sudden my blood pressure spikes up. So now I've got to go back on detox for 3 more days. So I'm 10 days into treatment now, and I still haven't.
Yeah.
I missed basically the first 2 weeks. I was able to go to the night meetings, the speaker meetings, which is where I started hearing and identifying.
Yeah.
This guy, Lance, I remember him speaking, and I was like, that guy's crazier than I am. He's sober.
Right.
6 or 7 years
Did
sober
any
now.
of the stuff you heard or any experience you had previously in AA come flooding back to you?
No.
So you kind of just were detached from all that.
Yeah.
And you were at ground zero that day.
Yeah.
And just started growing from there.
Yep. Yeah, I came in with no, I've got knowledge of Big Book. I came in like total blank first timer.
So was that just
like
a 20?
those 4 years were like a blur
Yeah.
that I was even in and out of AA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that, was it a 28-day again that you were doing?
It was 28, and then they have a 90-day program after that, which is called Jelnik, which is where I thought I was headed because I already had a late start because I had basically 10 days in a detox. So George is like, probably in my 3rd week, he's like, are you willing to do whatever we suggest? I'm like, sure.
Wow.
Do whatever you want. And I'm thinking they're going to say you need to go to Jelnik for 90 days and then go to the halfway house, which is the normal path for a lot of the harder guys. So it gets to my 4th week, and I got through my 4th and 5th step. I did my 5th step in Hazelwood.
Oh, nice. Man.
So I got me with George to start talking about discharge and what my plans are. He's like, and they tell you what their recommendations are. And he's like, we think we're going to recommend you go to Fellowship House. I was like, really?
What is that?
It's a halfway house that they own in St. Paul.
Okay.
It's a 6-month program. So I was like, cool. I'm good to go. So that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
The willingness was just there.
Yeah.
That whole time.
Yeah, it was a 60-bed unit right downtown St. Paul. It was in an old brewery, actually. It was an old house. It was the brewmeister's house that Hazelden bought, converted it, made it into a
How ironic.
halfway house.
And
it was very structured.
Yeah.
And I had a counselor there. We had to go to meetings. In the first 2 weeks, we couldn't leave the house. We had to do jobs in the house, go to meetings in the house.
Learn
we had
how to live life.
we had financial education, all sorts of basic stuff,
Yep.
right? And then after 2 weeks, we had to start looking for a job outside. And a lot of the guys there similarly had some money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Some guys didn't, some guys
Yep.
did. I was in there with a trader that, I probably got sober with more money when I got sober than I have today. So, I didn't have a financial bottom. I had a spiritual and emotional bottom, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
So, I got a job at a car wash, started working there, loved that. And then after 3 months, we were able to get our car, have a car, started getting more and more responsible. And now I'm going to, about 3 meetings a day in the house and outside of the house. 1 in the house, 2 outside the house. And
It had to be pretty humbling.
there was a very
experience.
big community of sobriety around St. Paul because a lot of people, after they got out, stayed around. Like I stayed over there. I stayed in town for 2 years after I got out of.
So there's a lot of alumni around.
Lots.
Yeah.
A lot of support.
Now, like Brett was saying, was it humbling for you?
God, it had to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting a
But
job
in a
at
good
car
way, right?
wash.
Yeah.
And so did you feel good about it?
I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he said he loved that job.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about that?
Along this way, are you starting to think like, this is what I want? This is how I want to live, you know?
I would say when I got my 90-day chip, I would say I was so amazed.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't believe I'm actually sober.
I know for us, it's like...
I used to get scared thinking this is going to go away.
Oh, right.
Because I lost that.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Healthy,
obsession.
though. Yeah.
That obsession, like it says, I don't refer to myself when I introduce myself as a recovered alcoholic.
Yeah.
But I identify with what they mean in the big book when they say we're 100 men and women who have recovered. Right?
Yes.
So, and I feel that today.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a
Mental
hopeless
obsession
state
is
of
gone.
mind and body.
That's right.
I no longer have a hopeless state of mind and body. I'm healthy. And now I need to do something every day to keep that up.
Absolutely.
I have a spiritual malady, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started really learning, like, I do have a spiritual malady. I mean, to the 10th degree.
Yeah.
And
Did you
that's
start
when
working on character defects at that time when you were
Yeah.
90 days in?
Yeah.
You'd done
about
your
90
fourth and
days in.
fifth, right?
I did my 4th and 5th.
Yeah, he did that in treatment.
Yeah. I got a sponsor. I'd say probably around 60 days I was doing 6 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then went right through 8 and 9. Did my amends. And
Did you end up making amends to your parents?
I did.
What was that like?
It was awesome.
Were they very accepting and
Yeah.
Sounds like they would have been.
probably relieved, right?
Oh, my God. Yeah. I had no idea.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
What a gift that was to them.
They were so supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know some of the things
They
that
came
I've
to my
seen.
1-year anniversary, and I spoke at my 1-year anniversary
Nice.
at the fellowship house. So.
Some of the things that I've seen, our parents are just like fucking blown away. Like, and they're just so relieved and so happy. And it's like when we're out drinking or using, we don't see that.
We don't
know.
think about it for a second.
No, but then
way.
when you start getting healthy and you start seeing this, you're like, geez, I guess I really did affect other people.
Yeah.
You know? What was your experience with thoughts of people, places, and things?
It's a big thing, big part of my
Yeah.
sobriety. So that, again, like I said, I stayed in St. Paul for 2 years in that sober community. And I had to change all my what friends I thought I had, which I really didn't anyway.
Yeah.
So that was no big deal. Relocating to St. Paul, just made sense.
And you weren't married or had kids or family or anything at this time, right?
No.
You were
Yeah.
unencumbered, so
Yeah.
to speak. And so after you get sober, you get some sobriety, and you move out of St. Paul,
Yeah.
right? What happens with the rest of your life?
So I met my wife at an AA meeting in St. Paul, who had come there to be a counselor, and she was going through Hazelden's counselor training program. I met her a year after I was sober, and we just coincidentally met at an AA meeting, River Falls, Wisconsin, and we started going out. And she stayed up there for another year to finish her training and then got certified. And ended up getting married. We moved down to Florida in 91, 92.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did you
we
move
got
back
married
down
in
to
92.
Palm Beach?
Yeah. Had 4 kids.
Wow.
Amazing. And she was sober 4 years when we got married.
Okay.
She always had 3 years more than I did.
Yeah.
But I like to think my sobriety was healthier.
And you always threw that in her face. But I am healthier.
Right.
So.
Ding.
No, I'm just kidding. So, yeah, got married, had 4 kids. Yeah.
Awesome.
All raised in sobriety.
Did you start a different career?
No, I got back into what I was doing.
Okay.
Real estate
And you had
development.
success?
Yep.
Right? Awesome.
Yeah.
You retired now?
I was for
Until
a
I
while.
wasn't.
Yeah. So I got divorced in 2013 and then hung out, had some fun for a while.
Yep.
Then I met somebody else in
Clean, sober fun.
Clean Sober Fun.
Yes, right.
Yeah. Just unattached.
Yes.
And I got introduced to this area in 2019
Okay.
and loved it. The first time I came up to, I had 4 kids, and one of my sons went to school in Ohio,
Okay.
at Denison University, which is in a town, Granville, outside of Columbus.
Okay.
Very hilly, very similar to
Yeah.
the
Terrain
suburbs
here.
around here. And we used to drive down this road into town coming from the airport. He'd be like, we're back in God's country.
Yeah.
My son would say that. I'd be like, yeah, it feels like it, right?
Nice.
And so I came up here in 2019 for the first time. And I was like driving on 321, I think. Yeah, on 321 from the airport, we got through 5 off 695, come out to Skinny Atlas. I'm like, just see farms.
Yeah.
Just seeing farms and hills. I'm like, I had that same feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you like that green,
God's country.
rolling hill,
I do.
peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
See,
identify.
people leave that to go
Serenity.
to Florida.
I know.
You're going the opposite
Yeah.
way. And
Right.
with global warming, I think you made a good decision.
So I commuted back and forth seeing this girl because she lived up here.
Yeah.
And yeah, for a while. But then around 2020, I'm like, I'm moving up here because
Nice.
I loved it so much.
Yeah,
And I
awesome.
started going to meetings and
Yeah.
it's
So I think at the start
feel
of
better.
this episode, Brett and I were talking about sponsorship and the rewards of helping other alcoholics. Can you talk a little bit about that?
sponsorship. Yeah, both ways.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been really fortunate. I've had 3 great sponsors, and now I'm on my 4th, and I don't like to tell them the story because I was young when I got sober, right?
Yeah.
And I'd always look for the winners, and I'd have these great guys that
yeah.
were my sponsors, but they were older,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'd die. I'd be like,
Got to go back and
So-
get another winner.
yeah. I think at 10 years I got a new sponsor. My first sponsor was an amazing guy, Lasker. A lot of people know who he is. He was a pretty well-known circuit speaker from Wisconsin, and he used his last name all the time. He used to put tapes out, and he was a really funny guy. So he was my sponsor for 10 years, from 0 to 10. And unfortunately, he passed. Then I got a new sponsor down in Florida, Earl, and he was my sponsor for about 15 years. And then he passed.
Yeah.
And then I got another sponsor after that, Jimmy, and he passed. So I was without a sponsor.
Right.
actually.
So when you ask people to sponsor you, they're like, "Oh no, I don't. I want to live longer than 10 years."
So it gets trickier though. So because
It
now
does,
I'm in 25 years of sobriety, right?
Right.
But I'm like, I can't sponsor someone if I don't have a sponsor. Like, that's not right.
Fair.
If I'm carrying the message, what's the message?
Right.
If I'm saying you go
You
to
need a
go
sponsor
to
and you
meetings,
don't have one.
read the big book,
Yeah.
get a sponsor.
Yeah. At this point, do you have to get a sponsor that's younger than you, has less time?
I thought about that.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
You're not opposed to it, right?
I'm not opposed to it. Yeah. As long as I can identify with them.
Yeah.
So anyway, I recently I was without a sponsor for a couple of years, and it dawned on me, I'm like, this isn't good. Even though I had connection in AA and friends and fellowship, it still felt like I just didn't feel right without a sponsor.
And you've sponsored others, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably
Oh,
plenty of
that's-
people
yeah.
with the years you have, right?
I mean, that's, for me, service is what really, and service to
fresh.
me there's nothing better than getting out of myself, because the alcoholism is I, self, and me, right?
That's right.
And that's the root of all my troubles.
And so when we're out of that and helping somebody
self-centeredness
else.
and self-seeking. And I can get very full of myself and into that pretty quickly. And for me, the best way to get out of it is being of service.
Yeah.
And that's truly a blessing to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I could do more of it.
It's all a blessing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
It is a miracle.
And you know what? You've been a blessing to have as a guest. Your story was pretty amazing. We're at the end of our time.
Oh.
I want to thank you for coming out and being on the Glum Lot Podcast. And until next time, I'm Mark.
I'm Brett.
I'm Tom.
As we wrap up another episode of the Glum Lot Podcast, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you who tuned in today. Navigating the path to recovery from alcohol and other substances is a journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and self-discovery. Remember, we're not affiliated with Alcoholics Anonymous, but we're here to provide a safe space for open conversations about the complexities of recovery. Your stories, courage, and resilience inspire us and our listeners alike. If you or someone you know is on the transformative journey, know that you're not alone. Join us next time as we continue to explore the diverse facets of recovery. Until then, stay strong, stay connected, and remember that each day is a step towards a brighter, sober tomorrow. Thank you for being part of the Glum Lot community.